We're going to live with my parents at my family home. From now on, you're in charge of taking care of them. One day, I was given a week-long trip by my husband, and upon returning, I found myself locked out of our house. Wondering what to do, I called my husband. I'm trying to get into the house, but for some reason, the key won't turn. I'm not sure what to do. Then, my husband answered with a loud laugh. Ah, that's because I've already sold the house, so you can't get in anymore. Sold it? Why? Why would you suddenly do something like that? Where are you now? It's because you were hesitant about moving in with my parents. If you don't have a house to live in, you'll have to come here, won't you? He sold the house without my consent, to force me to live with his parents at his family home. I had wondered why he offered me a trip, but I never imagined it was with this intention. I had never thought he would go this far, but now, I think it might be difficult to continue living with him. So, I told my husband. Too bad. I refused to do such a thing. Huh? You have nowhere else to live, but with my parents at my family home. What are you thinking? My husband completely misunderstood, thinking I had never done anything up until now. Yes, I had a plan in place. A plan for my selfish husband to lose everything. My name is Gina, a 55-year-old office worker. Currently, I live with my husband, Robert. I'd like to share a bit of my past. So this is our new home starting today. Yeah, let's live here happily together. Not just the two of us, but three. Ah, right. When I was 27, I married my husband and we bought a detached house. It was a shotgun wedding, so I was close to giving birth to our first son at that time, and soon after, our first son was born. 2 years later, our daughter was born. I'm so glad we have such cute children. I'm happy I married you, Robert. Me too, Gina. You've done well. Thank you for giving birth to our children. I also have a close brother, who was happy for us and came to the birth. So this is my niece Kim and my nephew Ted, but a cute niece as well. I'm so happy. You're getting all mushy. Your wife and kids might get mad at you. That would be trouble. I'll have to be careful. While chatting with my brother, I felt a bit lonely. But it's sad that Dad and Mom couldn't see Kim. That's truly regrettable, but it can't be helped. But they did see Ted, remember? They were so happy. I'm sure they're watching over Kim from heaven and are just as happy. If you say things like that, we might get divine punishment from Dad and Mom. That would be trouble. Sorry, Dad, Mom, please don't be mad. Really, you're such a joker, Dan. My parents passed away in an accident the year after my son was born. It was sad that they couldn't see my daughter, but talking with my brother helped ease the loneliness a bit. Anyway, my 2 children grew up healthy and strong. Now, both of them are adults and have moved out on their own. Contrary to the appearance of a happy family life, the reality was not so idyllic. I used to think my husband was a kind and good husband until our daughter was born, but gradually, his true nature began to show. I'm home. Is dinner ready? Welcome back. Yes, everything's ready. Huh? Is this all there is? I come home tired from work, hungry, and this is what I get? You should prepare something more substantial. I'm sorry. I was busy with the kids' extracurricular activities, breaking up their fights, and just got a bit overwhelmed. I didn't have enough time. Don't give me excuses. I work hard to earn a living until I'm exhausted. Taking care of the house and the children is your job. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. I never thought he would be such a domineering husband. There were times I asked, "Hey, I've been invited to lunch by some friends on my next day off. Could you watch the kids for me then?" His response was, "Huh? What are you talking about? Taking care of the kids is your job. Let me rest on my rare days off." If you really must go out, take the kids with you. All right, I understand. Requests to look after the children were refused, and I received no help with the household chores. Even the dishes after meals were left for me to clean. I was doing all the housework and childcare single-handedly. Because of this, I struggled without any time for myself for a while. What supported me during these times were my brother and my children. This was on my 45th birthday, 10 years ago. Mom, happy birthday. Here, this is from both of us. Oh, thank you both. The children were growing up well and healthy, which was a relief. One day, while the children were at school, my brother invited me out for lunch, which had been a rare occurrence. It's been a while since we've had a meal out like this. Is work okay? I've got a set break time, so it's fine as long as it's within that. How are the kids doing? Yes, they're both doing well and are kind. That's good to hear. What about you? Now that the kids are less dependent, why not get back into work or do something you enjoy? You should freely do what you like. Doing what I like, huh? You're right. Following my brother's advice, as the kids became more independent, household management became smoother, and I started to find more free time. I'll return to my previous job and give it my best. That's the spirit. Just don't overdo it. With my brother's advice and encouragement, I returned to work at a place near our home, and on my days off, I could go out with friends and have time for myself, leading a settled life. I'm truly grateful to my brother and my children. So, 10 years passed living quietly like this, and just as I was thinking about continuing to live peacefully, a comment from my husband slowly began to change the flow of my life. I wonder how my dad and mom are doing? Why do you ask all of a sudden? Just thinking out loud. My parents' home is in the countryside, and they've been getting on in years. As the story goes, my husband's family home is in the countryside. Indeed, my father-in-law is 85 years old, and my mother-in-law is 82, so they are certainly of advanced age. I thought it natural for my husband to worry about them, but the sudden mention of them made me anxious. This is because my relationship with my in-laws has never been good. From the time I married into the family, they looked down on me, saying things like, "Can someone like her really be a suitable wife for Robert? She seems like a poor match." I thought I'd rather not remember these unpleasant things. Just as I was thinking this, my husband began to talk about something unexpectedly again. "Hey, my parents are getting on in years. Why don't we move back to the countryside and live together in a nice place for their sake?" What are you talking about? It's troubling to be told something like this all of a sudden. What's so troubling about it? Are you saying you're not worried about my parents? Nobody said that. I'm just shocked because the suggestion is so sudden. Plus, I have my job right now. So what? Just quit your current job and find a new one in the countryside. You're such a blockhead. Don't say it like it's easy. There's also my age to consider. It's not so simple to just get a new job. Besides, I don't want to quit my current job. Think about my feelings a little, will you? As I resisted, my husband showed a bit of irritation but then said, I see. Fine. Do whatever you want." Saying so, he went back to his room, angry. I wondered if I had made him angry. I was a bit worried, but I have my own life to live. I couldn't just let my husband have his way in everything, so I convinced myself that it was for the best. After that, my husband didn't bring up the subject of living with his parents again, and I felt relieved, thinking he had understood my point of view. Then, one day, "Hey, I got tickets for a one-week tour of Yellowstone. You should go and enjoy yourself since I got them." Why all of a sudden? If you got them, let's go together. No, I can't go on the trip because of work commitments during that period. I see. Since you got the tickets, if you can't go, I won't go either. That's okay, right? I was hesitant to accept his sudden offer of a week-long trip, wondering what he was thinking. Despite my suspicions about his goodwill, I refused, but he insisted. "If you appreciate that I got the tickets for you, please do go. It'll definitely be fun. You won't regret it." "Really?" "Absolutely. Why not invite your brother and take it easy? Maybe you're right. It might be nice for a change." Unable to refuse his persistent encouragement, I decided to go on the trip. Thanks to my husband's suggestion, my brother happily accepted the invitation, and I enjoyed a week-long trip to Yellowstone with him. It was really a fun trip. Make sure to thank Robert for me. Yes, I'll let him know. After parting ways with my brother, I returned home. As I tried to unlock the door with my key, it wouldn't open. I thought, what's going on? Why can't I open the lock? Of course, I wasn't mistaken about which key I was using, nor was I doing it wrong. Yet, I couldn't get into my house, and I was baffled. I called my husband. "Hello, Robert? I just got back from the trip and I can't seem to open the house door. Do you know why the key isn't working?" If it was just a simple mistake on my part, Robert could open the door when he returned. While waiting for his reply, I was met with shocking words from the other end of the phone. "Ah, that's because I've already sold the house. You can't go in anymore." "What do you mean you sold it? Why would you do something like that all of a sudden? And where are you now?" "It was to call you back to my parents' house. I used work as an excuse, but if there's no house, you'd have no choice but to come here. I've already moved, so just accept it and come take care of my parents." "Are you serious?" Hearing my husband's words, I was truly dumbfounded. At the same time, I understood something. The sudden gift of a week-long trip had this purpose all along. I couldn't believe what my husband was intending. Although he had always been a bit of a patriarch, I hadn't expected him to go this far. However, I had no intention of following his wishes. Moreover, I was already aware of a fact that made it impossible to go along with my husband's plans. "That's too bad. I cannot just follow what you say." When I said that, my husband showed a puzzled reaction. "Huh, what are you talking about? Since the previous house has already been sold, unless you come to my parents' house, you have nowhere to return to, right?" "No, that's not the case. You seem to have forgotten what we talked about before." "Huh, what are you talking about?" "It was about our plans for the future. Don't you remember we talked about preparing for our retirement?" "Preparing for retirement?" "Yes, that's right. Did you not listen to anything back then?" "Stop nagging. Just tell me what you mean already." Sigh, "All right. You know that I inherited some money after my parents passed away, right?" "Ah, yeah. I saved that money and signed a contract for a luxury apartment." "What?" "The apartment is ready to move into. I will be living there, so I'm not coming back to your parents' house. But if you do that, our plans are ruined. Please reconsider." "That's a plan you made on your own, isn't it?" "I had already decided and signed the contract for the apartment after consulting with you." "Shut up. You should just listen to what I say." Such an absurd man. He wants to maintain his male dominance, but he fails to see how excessive it is. I realized I could no longer stay with such a self-centered person and came to a decision. Enough. This conversation is going nowhere. For now, I'm going to the apartment. I'll send the divorce papers to your parents' house later. I ended the call with that. I had put up with almost everything silently until now, but this was too much to forgive. The children are independent now, so there's no need for me to endure any longer. I was open to the idea of actually getting a divorce, but depending on my husband's attitude, I might reconsider. One day, as I was living in the apartment, visitors arrived. "Wow, you've signed a contract for a really nice apartment. Truly, it's spacious enough, as expected of a luxury place." With this, even if we decide to live together, there's plenty of room. Huh, Robert, Dad, Mom, what are you saying by suddenly showing up? I was already surprised to see my husband and in-laws, but their expressions and remarks clearly showed that Robert had not reflected on his actions. What are you here for? As I asked, the three of them smirked. Don't treat us so badly. This apartment was contracted for me to live in, wasn't it? So, just as you wished, I'm saying we should live here. That was meant for us two to live together. As I said that, my husband's family sighed and responded. What are you talking about? It's decided that Mom and Dad will live with us. Yes, that's right. We're all living together. Gina, we're counting on you. This is just too much. I was speechless at their audacity when my husband continued. Anyway, since we're going to live here together, we need to see what the apartment is like, so we all came to check out the rooms. Of course, you'll help us out with various things, right? We're relying on you, Gina. After all they had scorned me in the past, isn't this too presumptuous? And there was another thing that bothered me. Hey, didn't the divorce papers reach Robert's house? Yeah, they arrived. But that doesn't matter. I have no intention of divorcing, and I plan for you to take care of my parents. Just listen to what Robert says. Exactly. That's your duty as his wife. What are they all thinking? I was speechless. I can't deal with you just doing as you please. Please leave. Who's leaving? It's decided that the four of us will live here. Robert said this and, along with his parents, forcefully entered the apartment, making it impossible for me to send them away. I thought, what should I do now? Feeling utterly distraught and observing my husband's current demeanor, I've become convinced that he has no intention of reflecting on his actions. He must not be forgiven. I've firmly resolved that divorce is a must. Whether he plans to stay here indefinitely or eventually return to his childhood home is beyond me. I can't fathom what my husband and his parents are thinking. However, I realized that pondering on this alone won't solve anything, so I decided to call my brother for advice. Hello, Virginia, what's wrong? Did something happen? Yeah, actually. I then shared with my brother about how my husband had sold our house without my consent, how my divorce petition was ignored, and how, upon returning from my trip, I was ambushed at the newly contracted apartment. They insistently demanded that I live with my in-laws and take care of them. After listening to everything, my brother slowly began to speak. All right, leave it to me. Do you have a plan? Yes, that's. And so, my brother began to devise a strategy to deal with my husband and his parents. I had completely forgotten about that. Thank you for reminding me of something so important, brother. Consulting with my brother was the right choice. While my husband and his parents were squatting, I decided to leave certain matters in my brother's hands and focus on what I could do. A week after my husband and his parents started squatting, they finally began to make a move. Phew, living here makes me realize how much more comfortable home is. Indeed. Let's go back. Gina, you'll join us, right? I thought, are they finally willing to leave? Relieved, I knew I had no intention of joining them, but bluntly refusing might hinder my plans. So, I chose my words carefully. Yes, that sounds good. Please go ahead. I still have things to take care of. After I said that, my husband, without any suspicion, replied. What? You're not ready yet? You're so slow. Well, make sure to come back to our place as soon as possible. All right. With that, my husband and his in-laws returned to their home. A few hours later, it seemed my husband had arrived at his family home because he contacted me. When I answered, he was in a panic on the other end of the line. Hey, Gina. What on earth is going on? Oh, Robert. Why are you in such a panic? Don't play dumb with me. Why can't we get into our own house? If you know something, tell me. I thought, it seems like my brother did a good job. Hearing my husband's frantic tone, I couldn't help but think that. The reason being, you remember how your parents had a huge debt in the past, right? I remember, but what about it? It's already been paid off, hasn't it? No, the debt wasn't actually paid off. My parents just covered for it. We haven't repaid that amount to my parents yet. Ah, was that so? But what does that have to do with us not being able to enter the house? It seems he had forgotten what kind of agreement was made at that time, which was astonishing. When my parents covered the debt, they put your family home as collateral. It was agreed that if the money wasn't prepared, they'd enforce the collateral to get repaid. What? But your parents are already dead. There's no one left to enforce the collateral, right? He argued as if I was mistaken, but of course, that wasn't the case. Unfortunately, that right was transferred to my brother. Why? The debt was covered by your parents, not your brother. No, my brother has that right. When my parents covered the debt and put the family home as collateral, it was agreed that if anything happened to them, my brother would enforce the collateral. That can't be true, can it? On the other end of the phone, I could almost picture my husband and in-laws collapsing in despair. So, since the mortgage has already been executed and the property has passed to someone else, I think it's best you start looking for another place to live. Ugh, damn it. Don't mess with me. While listening to my husband lament over the phone, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. I was truly grateful for my brother's help this time around. After thanking my brother over the phone, who reassured me that he's always there for advice if I encounter any more troubles, I felt incredibly supported. However, I knew I also had to discuss this with my children. Though it was hard to talk about divorce with my children, who are adults and independent, it was something that couldn't be avoided. Later, when I invited my children out for a meal to discuss the situation. It seems like things have been tough for you. Dad had already contacted me, and I was surprised. Ted, you knew already? It's not just my brother. Dad had reached out to me too. Really? What did Dad say? I was taken aback to learn they already knew about the divorce. Wondering what my husband had told them, I was nervous until my son slowly explained. Dad was planning to have you live with him at his parents' place in the countryside, to take care of Grandma and Grandpa. Yes, that's right. He decided all on his own, and I was put in a difficult position. But then he said there's no house to live in because Uncle executed the mortgage, asking for help. How did it come to this? I had the same message from him. But I told him I couldn't decide anything until I heard the whole story from you, Mom. I'm sorry for involving you in this mess. I apologized to my children and explained everything in order, including how my husband sold our house during my trip and about the apartment I had prepared for our retirement. So, it was like that. Dad has always been selfish and overbearing, but I didn't expect him to go this far. It's his own fault this happened. I no longer feel obligated to help him out. I feel the same way, Kim. But Mom, you could have leaned on us more. If you were struggling, you should have asked for our help. Hearing my children say that made me feel saved. Indeed, both of them have become independent adults, and now, I realized it's my turn to be supported by them, filling me with gratitude. From my children's perspectives, I could imagine my husband and in-laws, without anyone to rely on or a home to return to, lost and bewildered. However, it was their own doing that led to such circumstances. To avoid being ambushed again by my husband and in-laws if I continued living in the initially contracted apartment, I decided to move to a different luxury rental apartment and leave the rest to a lawyer. From then on, I lived my life to the fullest, enjoying peaceful days chatting and spending time with my brother and children.